What's up guys, Kenan here with the 2001 E39 525, and today we're going to be replacing the front center console storing partition. Man, you know you own a German car when that is the title BMW gives it, but it is basically just this little tray down here. This is a part that wears very commonly on these cars. You just set stuff in it. I'm sure you guys set your smartphones in them and it just tends to wear out. My hesitations about buying a new one is I'm going to continue to do that, but I'm just going to get a little rubber mat to put in here while I'm in the car. Then when I want to show it off, it shows or whatever, I'll take it out. I believe the only tools you're going to need to be able to do this DIY will be a Phillips head screwdriver and a good magnet. I happen to like to use this one because it just fits nicely to get screws out, but honestly I think aside from that you're just going to need your hands, and it should be pretty straightforward. The first step you're going to have to do is to remove the cup holders. All you have to do is simply press the cup holder in. You'll see there's a Phillips head screw there and another one over there. Just go ahead and remove those, unscrew them, and then use the magnet to get them out. I found that's the easiest way to do it. Put your car into second if you have a manual, and then just simply wiggle them up, pull them all the way out. It's very easy. Be careful. You're probably going to catch it. The couple is along this side and this side. I noticed it's in there rather tightly, so just be aware of that and try not to pull on these too hard and break them, because God knows these cup holders are just so well built. The next step is to remove this panel here, which contains the heated seats, DSC button, sport if you have an M5, and the power shades button. This is relatively easy to do. All you have to do really is kind of just apply pressure from the back. It's difficult to do with one hand, but once you get one side out, you can pretty much slide the whole thing out. There's some wires to disconnect back here, which is relatively easy. It's hard to show with one hand, but there's just a clip that you undo. This whole thing will pop right out. I think I can kind of get it. It's tough. You push in right there on the brown part, and then just slide that out. That whole unit will disconnect. And then it's time to remove the Hvac unit after that, which is a similar process. Just reach behind there and push it forward. There are a couple things to unplug, but it's relatively easy. The reason you're taking all of these out is because the screws that hold this piece in are actually go into the frame that holds this entire section of the car in. As I can demonstrate here, they kind of get tucked back in there. That's what they look like. So you need to remove this entire bracket. It's not very difficult to do once you have all this out. They're just Phillips head screws that hold it in. Just unscrew those and carefully remove the bracket. Once you have the Hvac unit removed, these are the clips you're going to have to undo. There's one here. This one's relatively tightly. You just kind of have to squeeze and pull it right out. Then you have two of these types of clips. They're very, very common on the electronic system in E39s. Simply depress this blue tab here and lift this white tab forward, and it will pry this wiring harness right out of the Hvac unit. There's a black one back here. It works the exact same way. And then there's another clip over here. Simply depress these two tabs and pull right out. And it's very difficult for me to do that with one hand, but that's how it comes out. It's very easy. Then it's time to remove the bracket, which holds all of this in. There are 4 Phillips screws in this bracket. There's one here, one down there, and one over there. And just set those somewhere safe, don't lose them, and then it's time to move on to the center console. As it turns out, I stand corrected. Before I move on to the center console, there are 2 more Phillips screws you have to remove. This one here, and this one here. But once you have that done, it's time to move on to the shifter boot. To remove this, it's relatively easy. There are 5 tabs that hold it in. Just take your fingers and gently pry out. There are 5 tabs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Be careful not to break these. It's just your boot will not seat properly if you break them. You don't have to take the boot all the way off, just kind of lift it up so it's out of the way. Then there are 2 more screws to remove down here, both again Phillips heads, one here and one here. Then take this covering and simply move it out of the way. Then you realize you have to disconnect the wires down here because the lighter assembly is actually illuminated. So all you have to do is just disconnect this. It's relatively easy to do, but make sure that is disconnected before you remove the tray. But once you have the screws all undone and the wires disconnected, then you simply lift up on the center console and you should be able to slide this tray right out. Okay, some quick instructions on how to disconnect the wires here from the tray. It's very easy. So you take this first tab that's closest to you and pinch it together and pull very lightly and it will come right out. You don't need a lot of force to do it. The second tab, which is actually attached to the tray, what you need to do is rotate it towards you a little bit, rotate it up, and when you do that, there's a square mechanism on the back that goes into a hole on the center console. Once they're in alignment, it will come right out. Be very careful not to break this, as you will need it later when you go to put in your new tray. So just to note, it's very easy. Again, don't use too much pressure because you will break something and that will be a problem later down the line. Once you have the old tray out, there are a couple pieces you're going to have to move over. There are two metal tabs, metal acceptors for the screws that you're going to have to move over, and then on the cable, as you probably noticed when you're removing it, there's a little tab that kind of rotates out and then you pull this out all together. You have to remove this, it just slides right out. Again, very difficult for me to do this with one hand, but it will slide right out. Just move that over, lock it in place on this side. The white balance will focus. Just lock it in right there. Then this is ready to go back into the car. It's the exact reverse procedure. Make sure you get all your screws lined up and put this in, and be very careful not to scratch it. One thing to note before you screw all of this in is to make sure that your light actually works down here and that the door opens and closes. If your wires are obscured, more than likely this door for the cigarette lighter will not open. So just make sure you put your key in, turn the lights to position 1, even if you have automatic lights in this case, and just make sure that it lights up. Obviously it's hard to see with the light for the iPhone currently on. You can see a little bit there as I block it with my finger, but just make sure that works and lights up so that you're sure power is going to it. Once you have that done, then it is okay to go ahead and screw everything else back in. Just a quick note, when you're putting your tray back in, I found that putting this bracket in, the easiest way to do it was to put the bottom in first and then push the top in, because you do not want to scratch this new piece that you just paid about $90 for. So be careful when you're doing this. Get the tray lined up and then just push it into place. Make sure it doesn't move anymore, and it will lock this tray in, and you should be all set as far as that's concerned. Plug your HVAC unit back in, hook everything back up, and you should be good to go. Okay, so job done. Everything works, everything lights up, and it looks very nice. However, I will say this, on the pain in the rear end meter for this job, I definitely give it an 8.5 out of 10. It was a tough thing to do, but I did get all of it done, and it feels very nice. I did have passengers commenting how the old one looks so worn, and how everything in the interior looks so factory fresh except for that. But now the job is done. Just be careful, make sure everything works. My best advice is just to take your time and not break anything, and try not to scratch anything, and you'll be okay. So thank you very much for watching, guys. This is Kenan from E39 Source, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.